Lin Feng looked at the acquired life forms in the internal universe again. After defeating the innate 5-element spirit beasts, they seemed to have become the rulers of the universe. All kinds of internal conflicts also arose, and they were already on the verge of division. A shocking battle could erupt at any moment. Lin Feng had only been paying attention to all of this, and did not interfere. This was because the rules of the internal universe were still operating, and were even in good order. As the number of lives increased, and as the universe was slowly expanding, even the universe origin had increased by a little. What reason did Lin Feng have to interfere? Lin Feng's consciousness returned to his body again. Then, he stood up and left the quiet room. Outside the quiet room, after Ao saw Lin Feng, it rubbed against Lin Feng affectionately. Ever since Lin Feng allowed Ao to become an advanced chaotic life form, Ao grew closer and closer to Lin Feng. All right. Has anyone come to look for me recently? Lin Feng patted Ao's head and asked. Ao had manifested its true form now. This was the hallowed beast continent, and chaotic dire beasts dominated it. Hence, it no longer needed to transform into a snow-white dog and conceal its original appearance. Lu Ba was here? Lin Feng nodded. He had been in the quiet room for a full month this time. Lu Ba must have come to look for Lin Feng for something. Unfortunately, he had been driven away by Ao. Ao was not that reasonable. It was just a chaotic dire beast and an advanced dire beast at that. However, Lu Ba could not do anything to it at all. He even had to be careful and be wary of angering Ao. Even though there was an array in this courtyard, as Lu Ba's strength was suppressed by half, he was far from Ao's match. Let's go and ask Lu Ba what's the matter. Lin Feng left the courtyard with Ao to find Lu Ba. Led by the maidservant, Lin Feng walked towards the living room. Lu Ba seemed to be receiving a distinguished guest today, and they had been talking in the living room for an hour. From afar, Lin Feng heard an unfamiliar voice. Lu Ba, 10,000 chaotic prime crystals. Not a single cent less. In addition to the interest, you have to pay 12,000 chaotic prime crystals back. The final deadline is in 3 days. In 3 days, if you don't pay it back, this residence of yours and all the chaotic artifacts on you will be taken. By the way, if it's still not enough, you will have to report to the Bloodshed Squad and fight those chaotic dire beasts outside the city. What? 3 days? 3 days are not enough at all. If I have more time, I will definitely be able to gather 12,000 chaotic prime crystals. Lu Ba's face was pale. Actually, even if the other party took his residence and his chaotic artifacts, he would not be too desperate. However, if he was put into the Bloodshed Squad, he would truly be in despair. The Bloodshed Squad was a bottomless pit, a meat grinder to any chaotic perfected person who entered it, including advanced chaotic perfected persons. There was even a peak chaotic perfected person who entered the Bloodshed Squad for some reason and fell in a huge battle. The battle death rate of the Bloodshed Squad was over 90%, and less than 10% of them usually survived. If one was forcefully put into the Bloodshed Squad, they would practically be doomed. Hence, Lu Ba was very anxious, and begged the unfamiliar perfected person. Hey Lu Ba, when you borrowed 10,000 chaotic prime crystals back then, we were very straightforward. There's no need to say anything else. I'll come back in 3 days. With that, the unfamiliar perfected person left the living room. As soon as he walked out of the living room, he met Lin Feng and the others. Perfected person Lu. Perfected person Lin? Lu Ba's face lit up when he saw Lin Feng. On the other hand, that unfamiliar perfected person who had a burly build was actually an advanced chaotic perfected person. No wonder he dared to be so rude and unreasonable in front of Lu Ba. An AO and an advanced chaotic dire beast at that. This is worth 20,000, or even 30,000 chaotic prime crystals. Lu Ba, you have such a chaotic dire beast hidden in your residence. If you can give me this chaotic dire beast, I can give you another 10,000 chaotic prime crystals. Lu Ba's eyes lit up when he saw the 4 heads. No, this AO belongs to perfected person Lin. Perfected person Lin? The other party had clearly seen Lin Feng as well. However, even he could not see through Lin Feng's true cultivation level, so he did not dare to be too impudent for the time being. This AO belongs to perfected person Lin? Are you willing to sell it to me for 20,000 chaotic prime crystals? Faced with the unfamiliar chaotic perfected person's aggressiveness, Lin Feng did not even look at him as he walked straight into the living room. Ha! The unfamiliar perfected person's eyes narrowed slightly, looking very displeased. However, in the end, he did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Lu Ba meaningfully, turned around, and left the Lu manor. Lu Ba hurriedly entered the living room and bowed to Lin Feng. "Senior, please save me." Lu Ba had no choice. He could only place his hopes on Lin Feng now. "What is it? Perfected person Lu, why don't you tell me directly?" Lin Feng also vaguely guessed that it was probably related to the unfamiliar perfected person just now. As expected, Lu Ba said directly, "It's like this. I once went to the Extreme Spirit Tower to borrow 10,000 chaotic prime crystals for a profound cultivation technique. I agreed to return 12,000 chaotic prime crystals with interest a year later. Originally, I had a plan to go out a few more times in a year, slay chaotic dire beasts, and sell some things. I would definitely be able to gather 12,000 chaotic prime crystals. Unfortunately, I was severely injured in an accident half a year ago. I spent almost all my previous savings before I recovered from my serious injuries. I was delayed for half a year because of this and even borrowed some money. This time, I invited a few good friends and took the risk of luring an advanced chaotic dire beast, the terrestrial dragon, out of the hallowed beast continent. The goal was to kill this terrestrial dragon and sell it so that we can repay the debt to the Extreme Spirit Tower. However, I didn't expect this terrestrial dragon to be so powerful that we couldn't kill it at all. If not for Senior, we would probably have all been annihilated instead. There are only 3 days left until the 1-year repayment deadline. Once the 3-day deadline is up, the Extreme Spirit Tower will incorporate me into the Bloodshed Squad. The chance of survival in the Bloodshed Squad is slim. They fight with the chaotic dire beasts outside the city every day. I'm afraid I won't even survive for a day. Hence, may I be so bold as to ask Senior to save my life. At this point, Lu Ba could no longer care about anything else. He could only ask Lin Feng for help now. Otherwise, once the deadline arrived in 3 days, and he was really incorporated into the Bloodshed Squad, it would be too late for anything else. What's the background of the Extreme Spirit Tower? Lin Feng pondered for a moment and asked. The Extreme Spirit Tower is backed by Perfected Lord Extreme Spirit, one of the few perfected lords in Empyrean City. This background was too powerful. It was almost impossible to renege on his debt. 12,000 chaotic prime crystals. Is that a lot? Lin Feng frowned and continued to ask, is there any way to obtain chaotic prime crystals in the Empyrean City? Senior, the most direct method is to go outside the city and kill chaotic dire beasts. If one kills ordinary chaotic dire beasts and obtain their carcass, they can be sold for 100 chaotic prime crystals each. Advanced chaotic dire beasts can be sold for 10,000 chaotic prime crystals, and peak chaotic dire beasts can be sold for 1 million chaotic prime crystals. If I want to return 12,000 chaotic prime crystals, I'll have to kill 120 ordinary chaotic dire beasts. That's impossible in such a short period of time. At this thought, Lu Ba's face turned even paler. It had not been easy for him to cultivate from the bottom tier to becoming a chaotic life form. Who would have thought that one wrong move would lead to many more mistakes? Now, he was the one who had landed himself in deep trouble. With Lu Ba's strength, never mind 3 days, he could forget about repaying 12,000 chaotic prime crystals even in 3 months. That advanced dire beast, the terrestrial dragon, has already been refined by my chaotic artifact. Not even its carcass was left behind. Lin Feng said indifferently. In reality, he had used his internal universe to refine the terrestrial dragons. It had already been reduced to ashes. How could there be a carcass? What? I'm done for. I'm completely done for. Lu Ba despaired. Without the carcass of the terrestrial dragons, how could he return the 12,000 chaotic prime crystals to the Extreme Spirit Tower? Lu Ba was still in despair, but Lin Feng was deep in thought. He also learned that cultivators on the Hallowed Beast continent had a great need for chaotic prime crystals. It was a circulating currency. More than that, it was a type of energy crystal that assisted cultivation in itself. For example, if he had enough chaotic prime crystals, Lin Feng could even condense a second chaotic whole. Compared to refining chaotic dire beasts, it merely could not increase the universe origin, but could allow cultivating the chaotic whole. Empyrean City required chaotic prime crystals in every aspect, including cultivation techniques, chaotic martial arts, chaotic spells, and chaotic artifacts. They were also used for rent, and people even used them for hiring some chaotic perfected persons to protect themselves on expeditions and so on. The chaotic prime crystals were the universal currency of the hallowed beast continent. For 12,000 chaotic prime crystals, a dignified chaotic perfected person was willing to risk dying. Lin Feng looked deeply at Lu Ba. Whether Lu Ba was expressing goodwill or being smart back then, all of that was fine. Lin Feng did owe Lu Ba one chaotic prime crystal. This was a favor. Lin Feng had always repaid kindness with kindness, and repaid enmity with enmity. Now that Lu Ba was in trouble, and Lin Feng was even living in Lu Ba's residence, he would not stand by and do nothing. Perfected person Lu, there are still 3 days left. That's enough. 12,000 chaotic prime crystals just means slaying 1 or 2 advanced dire beasts. I'll return it for you. Huh? Senior, this... Lu Ba was overjoyed, and a trace of incredulity appeared on his face. However, give me some information on the chaotic dire beasts on the hallowed beast continent and accompany me outside the city. I'll make the decision. I'll get 80% of the profits from the chaotic dire beasts killed, and you'll get 20%. Do you have any objections? No objections. Thank you for saving my life, Senior. Lu Ba was overjoyed. Who was Lin Feng? A cultivator who roamed the chaos, whose mount was an advanced chaotic dire beast. Would it be very difficult for Lin Feng to kill advanced chaotic dire beasts? Even with the suppression of the hallowed beast continent, Lu Ba believed that it would not be too difficult for Lin Feng to kill advanced chaotic dire beasts. As for taking only 20%, that was completely free. Lin Feng was helping him. What was there to be dissatisfied about? If 10 advanced chaotic dire beasts were killed, even if he only received 20%, it would still be 20,000 chaotic prime crystals. It would be more than enough to repay the debt to the Extreme Spirit Tower, and there might even be leftovers. This was an opportunity. How could Lu Ba not be overjoyed? No need to celebrate so soon. There's also danger in leaving the city. If you really encounter danger, I may not be able to protect you. Therefore, you have to think carefully. Senior, if I die, it'll be due to my own luck. I'll give you the information on the chaotic dire beasts now. Hence, Lu Ba brought Lin Feng all the detailed information he had collected over the years about the hallowed beast continent, especially the chaotic dire beasts near Empyrean City, for Lin Feng to read through it carefully. Lin Feng was indeed reading through it carefully. This was all important information. The hallowed beast continent was the world of chaotic dire beasts. If one did not know the strength of chaotic dire beasts, they would practically be courting death. Its strength can also be enhanced? Lin Feng saw that not only would a kind of chaotic dire beasts not be suppressed in strength, its strength would even be enhanced. It was incredible. Lu Ba explained, Senior, there's something you don't know about how the hallowed beast continent came about. It's rumored that after a chaotic hallowed beast fell, it gradually seeped into the continent. Over time, many chaotic dire beasts were gradually born. Those chaotic dire beasts born with the purest aura of hallowed beasts are favored by the hallowed beast continent, and are its royalty. As long as they're its royalty, not only will they not be suppressed by the special environment of the hallowed beast continent, their strength would even be enhanced. They're very terrifying. I see. Lin Feng nodded. As for the legend that a chaotic hallowed beast had fallen on this continent, Lin Feng did not comment. Perhaps there was no smoke without fire. There should be some sign. However, even Lin Feng had only seen chaotic hallowed beasts in ancient texts. Forget about Lin Feng, it was very rare for even perfected lords to see true chaotic hallowed beasts. Lin Feng already had a rough understanding of the strength of the chaotic dire beasts. How about this? We'll set off tomorrow morning in the northwest direction outside the city. Northwest? That's mainly the territory of the poison dragon and the three-eyed giant. Lu Ba analyzed it carefully and realized that be it the poison dragon or the three-eyed giant, both were extremely strong, but their speed was not fast and their movements were slow. It might be easier to kill such chaotic dire beasts. Of course, it was only easier to experts who were far stronger than the poison dragon and the three-eyed giant. Cultivators who were weaker would instead avoid provoking these two chaotic dire beasts. However, since Lin Feng had already made his decision, Lu Ba could only obey. I'll prepare some antidotes first. Poison dragons are highly venomous. Lin Feng nodded and let Lu Ba make the preparations. The next day, Lin Feng and Lu Ba arrived at the city gate together. A cultivator who knew Lu Ba mocked, "Perfected person Lu? Are you going out of the city to risk your life? But there are powerful chaotic dire beasts outside the city. You'll be tempting fate if you go now. You might as well join the bloodshed squad directly. Perhaps if you're lucky, you can survive." There were simply too many cultivators like Lu Ba who were at their wits' end due to debts. There were even more who were incorporated into the bloodshed squad. Basically, such cultivators might as well be doomed. Humph. Lu Ba gritted his teeth, but did not say anything. He had nothing much to say. If he could not return, it would be useless to say anything. However, he was not courting death this time. He believed that, with Lin Feng's guidance, he would definitely be able to return to Empyrean City. At that time, these mocking people would naturally be ashamed. "Senior, let's go." Lin Feng nodded and rode on Ao's back. They left Empyrean City and flew towards the northwest. That's an AO? That's right. I think there are 4 heads too. An advanced chaotic dire beast. Where did Lu Ba find such a powerful cultivator, who can use an advanced chaotic dire beast like the AO as his mount? I think I heard that Lu Ba encountered a cultivator in the chaos back then and brought him home. Is that him? Lu Ba placed his bet on an unfamiliar cultivator traveling in the chaos. How foolish. It's not like chaotic perfected persons traveling in the chaos have never descended in our hallowed beast continent before. But what was their outcome? Even advanced chaotic perfected persons have more than 30% of their strength suppressed. Moreover, those chaotic perfected persons were not familiar with the environment of the hallowed beast continent. Many of them died. That's right. I'm afraid this Lu Ba and this chaotic perfected person roaming the chaos are both doomed. Some sighed, while others sneered. Most of the chaotic perfected persons did not think highly of Lu Ba and Lin Feng. However, no matter how the people behind talked, Lin Feng had already traveled far away on Ao's back, gradually disappearing from everyone's sight. The weather on the hallowed beast continent had always been very fine, and it was the same today. The sun was shining brightly, and the weather was warm, casting a golden glow on the ground. Not many people were in the mood to admire such a miraculous scene, however. Lin Feng and Lu Ba were in a swamp at this moment. Lu Ba's expression was tense. On the other hand, Lin Feng appeared very relaxed and content, and was appreciating this rare, beautiful scene. Swoosh! A few dark and massive dire beasts charged out of the swamp. These dire beasts looked like crocodiles. They opened their mouths and spat a thick black liquid at Lin Feng. "Senior, be careful. This is the venom of the poison dragon. Anyone who comes into contact with it will die," Lu Ba hurriedly reminded. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. Actually, he had long known that there was a situation in the swamp. There were a total of 3 poison dragons lying in ambush in the swamp. This was also a method that the poison dragons liked to use very much. Poison dragons were sinister and cunning, and liked to hide in the swamp and launch sneak attacks the most. Often, even advanced chaotic perfected persons would be in a sorry state if poison dragons ambushed them successfully. They might even fall into heavy encirclement and be poisoned to death. Chaotic flames. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a cluster of flames appeared out of thin air. Moreover, it instantly transformed into a net of fire that burned fiercely in the void, burning all the venom to ashes. This was the chaotic flames that Lin Feng had been cultivating ever since condensing the Heart of Fire. As the level of the Heart of Fire was not high, the efficiency of cultivating the chaotic flames was very low. It was actually not very useful to Lin Feng. However, the chaotic flames were put to use now. Heaven-turning seal. The chaotic flames burned the venom to ashes. Then, Lin Feng casually flipped his hand. The world spun, and the sun and moon dimmed. It was as if the world was turned upside down. A huge palm descended from the sky and slammed down hard. Boom! Those three daunting, chaotic, dire beasts that were poison dragons could only watch helplessly as Lin Feng's huge palm landed. Instantly, they cried out in pain as they were slammed into the swamp. Their bodies were broken and they were already dead. They're dead. Three chaotic, dire beasts. Poison dragons. Lu Ba's eyes twitched. What was this? He had casually killed three chaotic, dire beasts. This was not in the chaos, but on the hallowed beast continent. The strength of cultivators was suppressed. However, Lin Feng still attacked casually, stunning Lu Ba. A peak chaotic perfected person. Senior must be a peak chaotic perfected person. Lu Ba was overjoyed. He had never seen Lin Feng attack, but if he could subdue an advanced chaotic dire beast like Ao, he must be at least an advanced chaotic perfected person. Moreover, advanced chaotic perfected persons were really nothing much in the hallowed beast continent. If they were besieged by dire beasts, they would also be doomed. However, a peak chaotic perfected person was different. Not only was he suppressed by the hallowed beast continent by a much lower extent, his strength was also countless times stronger than an advanced chaotic perfected person. There's hope. Looks like there's really hope for him to help me in repaying the 12,000 chaotic prime crystals. Lu Ba was incomparably happy. The stronger Lin Feng was, the happier he would be. There's indeed some suppression. Lin Feng frowned. When he used the heaven-turning seal just now, he clearly felt a suppressive force in the entire space, reducing the power of the heaven-turning seal by some extent. Even so, with Lin Feng's current strength, even if he did not unleash the chaotic hole, he could easily kill any ordinary chaotic dire beast with just the heaven-turning seal. Although the carcasses of the three dire beasts were shattered, Lin Feng still stored them in his space. Even if they were shattered carcasses, as long as they were carcasses, they were worth 100 chaotic prime crystals. Swoosh! However, as Lin Feng killed the three poison dragons, the entire swamp area seemed to shake. Bubbles appeared in the swamp, and enormous heads appeared one after another. These heads were all the heads of the poison dragons. All of them stared at Lin Feng menacingly. Even Ao was whimpering softly at this moment. It was clearly sensing great threat. Senior, be careful. This place is filled with poison dragons. Lu Ba was already at a loss, but he still managed to maintain his composure. Lin Feng was a peak chaotic perfected person. No matter how dangerous the situation was, he should be able to resolve it. Lin Feng raised his brows. So many poison dragons could only be chanced upon by luck. Boom! Poison dragons charged out one after another, blotting out everything. There were probably dozens or hundreds of them. The scene of them swarming together was simply daunting. Good! Lin Feng took a step forward. Instead of retreating, he advanced. With a step forward, his entire body floated in the void. Unseal. As Lin Feng unsealed the first chaotic hole, which was also the only chaotic hole in his body, a terrifying aura surged into the sky like a tsunami. He was like a truly indomitable god as he stood in the void. Although his frame could not be considered very tall, and he even appeared insignificant before the many massive chaotic dire beasts, his aura in this instant swept out and crushed everything. No chaotic dire beast could compare to him. Ugh! There were faint cries of dire beasts. In the distant void, there were a few powerful auras that were not inferior to peak chaotic perfected person at all. That was a peak chaotic life form, the king among poison dragons. Lin Feng unsealed the aura of chaos. It was already enough to make even the king among the poison dragons feel threatened. There were hundreds of chaotic dire beasts, all chaotic life forms. How terrifying was that aura! Moreover, large hordes of poison dragons appeared in an overwhelming manner. When had Lu Ba ever seen such a scene? For a moment, even though Lu Ba was chaotic perfected person, he could not help but tremble. He would probably never forget such a scene for the rest of his life. Lin Feng stood in the void. He did not even use the Celestial Emperor Peak, the Spirit Suppression Bell, or the cosmic power of his internal universe. He stood there quietly in the void, his entire being like a deity, incomparably tall and imposing. Vacuum seal. As the poison dragons charged towards Lin Feng in an overwhelming manner, Lin Feng finally attacked. It was fine if he did not attack, but once he attacked, it was earth-shattering. It was practically his strongest defensive method apart from various chaotic artifacts. The fourth form of the Heaven and Earth Seal Vacuum Seal. Boom! With a palm strike, even the void seemed to freeze all of a sudden. Those hundreds of aggressive, chaotic, dire beasts all looked sinister and terrifying as their auras surged. However, under Lin Feng's palm, everything seemed to have frozen. The area within a radius of dozens of kilometers turned into a vacuum zone all of a sudden. Even though Lin Feng's attack did not land on Lu Ba still felt his entire body tense, as if his heart had been squeezed all of a sudden. He would never forget that suffocating and terrifying feeling. Thump, thump, thump. In just a moment, there was no earth-shattering sound, no bloody mist that filled the sky. The momentum seemed to be inferior to the heaven-turning seal. However, as Lin Feng used the vacuum seal, the hundreds of poison dragons, which were all chaotic life forms, all lost their life force and dropped like rain, falling to the ground. The entire void was like a deathly purgatory. In the sky, the golden light was still shining on the ground. The light of the swamp even reflected strands of golden light, illuminating the entire sky. Lu Ba's mouth fell open and his eyes widened. His voice was stuck in his throat, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not make any sound. Lin Feng was like a living legend, an ancient deity. Hundreds of chaotic dire beasts were killed in a single palm strike. Hundreds of poison dragon carcasses fell to the ground. Lin Feng used his cosmic power and moved all the carcasses of these poison dragons into the internal universe. Be it refining them or selling them in Empyrean City, they were all huge gains. Lu Ba drew a deep breath, his eyes filled with joy. Those were hundreds of poison dragons. Even if they were just ordinary chaotic dire beasts, 100 of them would be worth at least 10,000 chaotic prime crystals. However, Lu Ba also knew very well that with Lin Feng's strength, his target was not ordinary chaotic dire beasts. No matter how many ordinary chaotic dire beasts he killed, how could they compare to advanced chaotic dire beasts? An advanced chaotic dire beast was almost comparable to 100 ordinary chaotic dire beasts. It was naturally obvious at a glance which was more important. Buzz. After Lin Feng killed hundreds of poison dragons, he seemed to have completely angered the experts among the poison dragons. Hence, a few terrifying auras soared into the sky, accompanied by furious roars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lu Ba's face became paler and paler. He sensed that a total of 13 terrifying auras soared into the sky. They were all advanced chaotic dire beasts. Just this aura alone was enough to intimidate most of the cultivators in Empyrean City. Even a peak chaotic perfected person would be very serious when facing such an array. Moreover, this was the lair of the poison dragons, and there were peak chaotic dire beasts. Boom! As expected, after the 13 vast auras soared into the sky, another aura that shook the world instantly soared into the sky. There were also hundreds of poison dragons roaring towards the sky. Only peak chaotic dire beasts had such power. What? We've alarmed a peak chaotic dire beast. Lu Ba's face instantly went pale. Although he was the dignified chaotic perfected person, how terrifying was a peak chaotic dire beast. This was especially the case on the hallowed beast continent. The strength of cultivators was suppressed, and chaotic dire beasts were in their element. Under such circumstances, cultivators were generally weaker than chaotic dire beasts, let alone peak chaotic dire beasts that could even be considered hegemons among chaotic dire beasts. Every time such a peak chaotic dire beast appeared, even the Empyrean City would be very nervous. As expected, as this terrifying aura that soared into the sky appeared, the chaotic perfected persons in Empyrean City were immediately alarmed. What a terrifying aura! What's going on? A white-haired elderly appeared at the city gate. Although he was white-haired, he did not look old at all. Instead, he was hale and hearty, and had a dignified air about him. This elderly was the famous perfected person Songlong, also a peak chaotic perfected person. Perfected person Songlong. It should be in the northwest direction. Something must have happened in the territory of the poison dragons and three-eyed giants. Perfected person Songlong's eyes narrowed slightly as he said in a low voice, "It's indeed in the northwest. Moreover, from the looks of it, it should be in the swamp. That must be the poison dragons. That aura just now must be a peak chaotic dire beast." What exactly alerted a peak chaotic dire beast? Could a conflict have arisen between the three-eyed giants and the poison dragons? Perfected person Songlong could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. Every time chaotic dire beasts made a move, the cultivators of Empyrean City would pay close attention. The three-eyed giants and the poison dragons have always minded their own business. I don't think so. Then apart from the three-eyed giants, who else can alert the peak chaotic dire beasts in the poison dragon's lair? No peak chaotic perfected person has left Empyrean City recently. There aren't even any cultivators leaving it. No. 2 people left Empyrean City. You mean Lu Ba and that mysterious chaotic perfected person? Impossible. Many cultivators on the city gate were discussing spiritedly. Recently, almost no cultivator had left the city in Empyrean City. The only they could be remember was Lu Ba. Perfected person Songlong said in a low voice, "You mentioned Lu Ba just now?" "That's right, it's Lu Ba. He just left Empyrean City. The direction he went in, I think it's the northwest." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expressions froze. That's right. Lu Ba seemed to have left Empyrean City to go northwest. Many people knew about this. Northwest direction. No wonder. I vaguely sensed the chaotic aura of a cultivator just now. Even though it's very obscure, it's definitely the aura of a peak chaotic perfected person. What's the name of the mysterious cultivator who was accompanying Lu Ba? What's his background? Hearing perfected person Songlong's question, many people shook their heads. Perfected person, we don't know the name of that mysterious cultivator. We only know that he was traveling in the chaos and encountered Lu Ba by chance. He even saved Lu Ba's life once. Later, he followed Lu Ba to Empyrean City. By the way, that mysterious cultivator also owns an advanced chaotic dire beast, AO. Turmoil rose in the hearts of these chaotic perfected persons as well. How could they not know that that mysterious cultivator was very likely an expert who hid his strength? It was even very likely that he was a peak chaotic perfected person. After all, how could someone who could roam the chaos and own an advanced chaotic dire beast be weak? Looks like it's this mysterious cultivator. When this perfected person returns to Empyrean City, I'll definitely visit him and congratulate Empyrean City on gaining another comrade. Perfected person Songlong was very happy. He had grown up in Empyrean City and attained success in cultivation. He had deep feelings for Empyrean City. Originally, considering his strength as a peak chaotic perfected person, even if he left Empyrean City and ventured into the depths of the chaos, he would still be safe. However, he did not leave. Instead, he continued to protect Empyrean City. Even as the cultivators in Empyrean City became fewer and fewer, especially as powerful cultivators chose to enter the chaos, he still did not leave. Now, the appearance of another peak chaotic perfected person in Empyrean City was something worthy of celebration to the entire Empyrean City. Lu Ba is really lucky. It's likely that Lu Ba can make a comeback this time. Many people were very envious of Lu Ba, yet had forgotten how they had mocked and ridiculed him previously. In the hallowed beast continent, everyone was very realistic because even chaotic perfected persons faced mortal danger at every moment. The strong were respected. This was vividly reflected in the hallowed beast continent. Pay close attention to the commotion. If there's any danger, I can't let anything happen to that perfected person no matter what. Perfected person Songlong's expression was solemn. It was not easy for Empyrean City to get another peak chaotic perfected person. How could he allow Lin Feng to be in danger? Hence, he had even secretly contacted a few good friends. If the matter turned into an emergency, they would immediately leave Empyrean City to rescue Lin Feng. Songlong did not want the new peak chaotic perfected person to fall without even getting to meet him. He's still too rash. He actually charged into the Poison Dragon Lake alone. The Hallowed Beast continent is even more dangerous than the chaos. Perfected person Songlong shook his head with a solemn expression. Lin Feng, who was at the Poison Dragon Lake, had a calm expression. It was as if he did not care about the 13 poison dragons and the poison dragon that was a peak chaotic dire beast at all. Gore! As the roars of the poison dragons approached, Lin Feng could already see an incomparably huge poison dragon surrounded by 13 slightly smaller poison dragons in the distance. A total of 14 poison dragons howled as they pounced towards Lin Feng. Just the aura alone was suffocating. Lu Ba's entire body was already stiff, and he had retreated by a very far distance. Although Ao had not retreated far, it was still very vigilant as it growled in a low voice. Clearly, these 14 poison dragons already made Ao feel a huge threat. Lin Feng was dressed in white. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He seemed indifferent as the 14 poison dragons approached. Gore! The 14 poison dragons only had some intelligence, similar to Ao. Naturally, they could not communicate with Lin Feng. However, they were not stupid. The poison dragon that was a peak chaotic lifeform growled, and the other 13 advanced chaotic lifeforms pounced at Lin Feng. The poison dragon, which was a peak chaotic lifeform, stared intently at Lin Feng. It was clearly searching for Lin Feng's weakness and waiting for an opportunity to attack. However, how could Lin Feng be afraid of such a simple tactic? Gravity Seal. Facing the 13 advanced chaotic lifeforms, Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he struck out with his palm. It was the third form of the Heaven and Earth Seal, the Gravity Seal. The Gravity Seal had a binding effect. Hence, the Gravity Seal was the most suitable for large-ranged attacks. Boom! As expected, as soon as the Gravity Seal struck, the 13 poison dragons seemed to stiffen for a moment, restrained by heavy gravity. With Lin Feng's current strength, even if he had not unsealed chaotic holes, the 13 advanced chaotic dire beasts were not his match. A peak chaotic perfected person was great and powerful. Peak entities were not something that could be contended against with numbers. If numbers were useful, it would not be so difficult for human cultivators to deal with those peak chaotic dire beasts. Even cultivators had to rely on layers of arrays, chaotic artifacts, and many advanced chaotic perfected persons to barely contend with a peak chaotic dire beast. These advanced chaotic dire beasts did not have arrays. How could they be Lin Feng's match? Crunch. Under the Gravity Seal, the 13 advanced chaotic dire beasts were all restrained. Even the dire beasts' bodies began to suffer heavy damage. Lin Feng extended his cosmic power and moved the 13 poison dragons into his internal universe to suppress them. Seeing the void turn suddenly empty, the 13 poison dragons instantly disappeared. The poison dragon that was originally waiting for an opportunity to attack also seemed a little dumbfounded. However, it could sense a strong threat from Lin Feng. It was extreme danger. Gore! The peak chaotic poison dragon was no longer willing to wait. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of venom. Unlike other poison dragons, the venom of the peak chaotic poison dragon almost interwove into a huge net that was airtight, enveloping an area of several kilometers. There was no way to even escape. Lin Feng did not have any defensive chaotic artifacts, and his body was not the strongest. However, he had chaotic flames. Even though there was not much chaotic flames, it was not difficult to protect his entire body. Hence, a layer of flames quickly spread out on the surface of Lin Feng's body, burning fiercely, making Lin Feng look like a huge giant made of fire. The chaotic flames burned fiercely. No matter how the poison dragon's venom splattered over, as soon as it touched the flames, it was burned to ashes by the chaotic flames. Seeing that the venom was useless, the poison dragon's entire body began to expand. The pustules on its body made its entire body even larger and uglier. Swoosh! The poison dragon's massive body charged forward. It was as if wind and clouds were following it. Even the air was compressed to the extreme, and there was a faint sound of air exploding. Even Lin Feng's calm gaze contained a hint of solemnity. Peak chaotic lifeforms were even more exceptional on the hallowed beast continent, where the strength of cultivators was suppressed, while chaotic dire beasts were not suppressed at all. This unique environment allowed peak chaotic dire beasts to contend with peak chaotic perfected persons, and even have the upper hand. Good one. Vacuum seal. Lin Feng did not hesitate at all. He struck out with his palm, and the surrounding air seemed to be sucked out at once, forming a vacuum zone. A terrifying pressure suddenly descended on the poison dragon. Thud. The poison dragon's body was indeed powerful. Lin Feng was sent flying. However, with a slight circulation of the chaotic energy in his body, he was as good as new. It was the same for the poison dragons. Lin Feng's vacuum seal did not have much effect on them. As expected, under normal circumstances, my strength is suppressed by 30%. Even if I use the vacuum seal, I can't do anything to a peak chaotic dire beast. Lin Feng was just testing to see how much of a difference there was between him and a peak chaotic dire beast on the hallowed beast continent. The results of the test were out. Actually, the poison dragon was still quite difficult to deal with. If not for Lin Feng's chaotic flames, its venom alone would have been impossible to guard against. Lin Feng would never have been able to handle this so easily. Even so, the poison dragon relied on its physical strength alone to put Lin Feng at a disadvantage. In that case, Lin Feng no longer hesitated. Unseal. Boom. As Lin Feng undid the chaotic hole, which was also the only chaotic hole in his body, the aura on Lin Feng's body immediately soared again, vaguely rising to a new level. Vacuum seal. Lin Feng clapped his hand. He was like an ancient deity descending. A terrifying power swept through the surrounding void like ice, and cracking sounds rang out incessantly. Gore! The poison dragon's eyes widened, finally revealing a trace of fear. It was afraid. At this moment, Lin Feng's strength had more than doubled. The unsealing of a chaotic hole had improved Lin Feng in all aspects. Hence, the power of the vacuum seal had increased by at least a few times. Moreover, after unsealing the chaotic hole, the suppression on Lin Feng from the hallowed beast continent was also extremely small. Previously, he was suppressed 30%. Now, Lin Feng only felt that he had been suppressed by 20%. If he could have a few more chaotic holes, Lin Feng would only be suppressed by 10% or less. The impact on him would be negligible. Boom! The vacuum seal struck the poison dragon hard, and its massive body instantly collapsed. The hideous and terrifying pustules and tumors exploded instantly, and a large mass of venom actually splattered out. Moreover, it was so close that Lin Feng was caught off guard. He hurriedly dodged, and a layer of chaotic flames appeared on his body. Swoosh! However, with this delay, the poison dragon fled backward in a frenzy. Moreover, it instantly landed in the swamp on the ground and disappeared. Huh? I was a little careless. I didn't expect these poison dragons to have some tricks up their sleeves. Peak chaotic dire beasts are indeed not that easy to kill. However, do they think they can escape just like that? Lin Feng had not even used a chaotic artifact just now, let alone the cosmic power. Hence, Lin Feng might not have used even half of his combat power just now. Lin Feng just wanted to test what level his strength was at in the hallowed beast continent. And now, Lin Feng had almost finished his test. Next, it was time to reap the harvest. Looking at the majestic and incomparably wide swamp below, if they hid in the swamp, there would really be no way to find them. By relying on their lair, the poison dragons rendered cultivators unable to do anything against them. However, Lin Feng did not intend to search for them one by one. The poison dragons could escape, but they could not move the poison dragon lake away. Celestial Emperor Peak. Lin Feng extended his hand and pointed. A golden light flashed in the void, and then, a mountain enveloped in a faint golden light appeared in the void. Expand! 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 Lin Feng activated the Celestial Emperor Peak. Immediately, the Celestial Emperor Peak began to expand wildly. It was a mountain that had existed in the Incendium continent for billions of years to begin with, and Lin Feng had also refined it. How powerful would it be? Hence, Lin Feng only allowed the Celestial Emperor Peak to return to its original state. The entire sky darkened, as if shrouded in a shadow. The majestic mountains stretched across the void, emitting a savage, ancient, and heavy aura. This was a true, divine mountain, refined into a chaotic artifact by the Celestial Emperor. Fall! Lin Feng's gaze was cold. He faced the poison dragon lake below and mobilized the Celestial Emperor Peak. It descended from the sky with a terrifying might and smashed towards the poison dragon lake below. Boom! How massive was the Celestial Emperor Peak? It enveloped an area of more than dozens of kilometers. After all, it was a true divine mountain that had stretched across the Incendium continent for billions of years. Back then, even a peak chaotic perfected person could not refine it into a chaotic artifact. It was unknown what method the Celestial Emperor used, but after a very long time, he managed to slowly refine the Celestial Emperor Peak into a chaotic artifact, and a peak chaotic artifact at that. How heavy was the Celestial Emperor Peak? Lin Feng did not know either, but he knew very well that with his current strength and the Celestial Emperor Peak, if it crushed down at once, even a peak chaotic lifeform would be severely injured. As for those below peak chaotic lifeforms, they would definitely die. Gore! As the Celestial Emperor Peak landed, the poison dragon lake was instantly annihilated. The ground was densely covered in spiderweb-like cracks. With this smash, countless poison dragon died unnatural deaths. Before they could even escape, they were crushed by the Celestial Emperor Peak. Only some very lucky poison dragons were fortunate enough to survive. Among them was the poison dragon that was a peak chaotic lifeform, which Lin Feng had severely injured previously. There was not just one, but 2, 3, 4, a total of 8 of them. 8 poison dragons that were peak chaotic lifeforms suddenly flew out of the ground. Their eyes seemed ready to spew fire, and they looked incomparably furious. It was destroyed, completely destroyed. Even the 3-eyed giants did not dare to offend the 8 peak chaotic dire beasts in the poison dragon lake lightly. But now they were all dead. The poison dragon lake had almost been filled. Only a fraction of the poison dragons and the 8 peak chaotic lifeforms escaped. The 8 poison dragons that were peak chaotic lifeforms all glared at Lin Feng with insane looks, emitting monstrous killing intent. Far away in Empyrean City, perfected person Songlong had been paying close attention to the poison dragon lake in the northwest of Empyrean City. He saw a magnificent mountain descend from the sky like an ancient divine mountain, and the entire ground was actually shaking. It could be sensed even from the Empyrean City. What is that? What a huge mountain. This power is also terrifying. This is a chaotic artifact? It must be a peak chaotic artifact. With such terrifying power, even a peak chaotic perfected person would be severely injured if they were struck once by it. Looks like it must be that mysterious peak chaotic perfected person. Impressive, impressive. Is he trying to eradicate the poison dragon lake alone? Even perfected person Songlong was inexplicably shocked. It was not that he did not have peak chaotic artifacts, but peak chaotic artifacts were also divided into different levels, and their characteristics were all different. This was especially the case for a terrifying chaotic artifact like the Celestial Emperor Peak, which was extremely powerful. The force of the entire mountain could severely injure a peak chaotic dire beast. It was very rare. At the very least, no chaotic perfected person in Empyrean City possessed such an artifact. In the hallowed beast continent, as the strength of cultivators was suppressed, chaotic artifacts were relatively important. Artifacts like a mountain that attacked with its weight alone were almost completely unaffected. How bold was it to eradicate the poison dragon lake alone? Just the thought of it made him full of passion as his heart raced. However, following closely behind were 8 monstrous auras that soared into the clouds. They could be sensed even from the Empyrean City. This is bad. Those 8 poison dragons are peak chaotic lifeforms. We have to save that chaotic perfected person. Perfected person Songlong's expression changed. At the city gate, the 3 peak chaotic perfected persons that perfected person Songlong had already contacted in advance were all lifelong friends of his. Old pals, we cannot leave this peak chaotic perfected person to die. Let's go to the poison dragon lake. Haha, very well. I'd also like to see how magnificent this perfected person who intends to eradicate the Poison Dragon Lake alone is. I've wanted to level the Poison Dragon Lake for a long time. I can't miss such a good opportunity now. Hence, including perfected person Songlong. A total of 4 peak chaotic perfected persons instantly flew out of Empyrean City and towards the Poison Dragon Lake. Lin Feng did not know that chaotic perfected persons from Empyrean City were coming to save him. Even if he knew, he would just laugh it off. In his eyes, the 8 poison dragons that were peak chaotic lifeforms were just a large pile of chaotic prime crystals that could be converted into the universe origin. Forget about 8, even if there were 18 of them, Lin Feng would not be afraid at all. Instead, he was actually a little excited. Gore! However, the 8 poison dragons were incomparably furious. They surrounded Lin Feng almost immediately and spat out a large amount of venom at him. This highly poisonous venom was sprayed by poison dragons that were all peak chaotic lifeforms. Anyone who came into contact with it would die. Even Lin Feng did not dare to resist them head-on with his primeval body. As for dodging, the venom was all sprayed towards him in the form of splatters, and there was nowhere to dodge. They could only be burned with chaotic flames. But the chaotic flames cultivated in Lin Feng's heart of fire were limited. Thud, thud, thud. A large amount of venom was burned to ashes by the chaotic flames on the surface of Lin Feng's body. However, a large amount of venom still sprayed over. These 8 poison dragons wanted to exhaust Lin Feng to death. It seemed like their intelligence was not that low. Celestial Emperor Peak. Descend. Lin Feng reached out and waved his hand. Then, the Celestial Emperor Peak tore through the air with a rumble and smashed towards the poison dragons. No matter how powerful the venom of the poison dragons was, what use was it before the Celestial Emperor Peak? Bang, bang, bang. Lin Feng activated the Celestial Emperor Peak and descended without mercy. Ignoring the resistance of the poison dragons, he smashed down in a frenzy. Time after time, the poison dragons could withstand it. They might be able to withstand it for once, twice, or thrice. However, how could they withstand it for 4, 5, 6, or even dozens of times? Lin Feng was filled with chaotic aura now. A chaotic hole had been lifted from his body. The richness of the chaotic aura far exceeded that of ordinary peak chaotic perfected persons. Crunch. Finally, a poison dragon could not withstand it anymore. Its body was broken by the Celestial Emperor Peak, and it fell. Then 2, 3, 4. In a short period of time, with the Celestial Emperor Peak in hand, Lin Feng was almost invincible. As he fought, the 8 poison dragons were all terrified. There were only 4 poison dragons left. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, they could only let out a low cry and turn to flee. Trying to run? A cold smile appeared on Lin Feng's lips. With a flick of his finger, a speck of golden light flew out. It grew in an instant, and in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a huge metal bell. Clang! As soon as the spirit suppression bell rang, the bodies of the 4 poison dragons that had already fled for a distance suddenly stiffened, and they actually fell straight towards the ground. Lin Feng transformed into a stream of light and extended his hand to grab the 4 poison dragons that were peak chaotic lifeforms. With a sweep of cosmic power, the 4 poison dragons were sealed into the internal universe. Swoosh! At this moment, 4 figures flew over from the distant sky. Their entire beings emitted a powerful aura. They were all peak chaotic perfected persons. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He stood quietly in the void with his hands behind his back. Swoosh! The 4 beams of light stopped instantly, revealing the figures of 4 chaotic perfected persons. With Lin Feng's insight, he could naturally tell at a glance that these 4 people were all peak chaotic perfected persons. Who are you? Lin Feng asked indifferently. He would not trust others lightly, especially since there were so many carcasses of poison dragons here. In Empyrean City, it was a sum of wealth that could make even peak chaotic perfected persons envious. That's perfected person Songlong. When Lu Ba saw the 4 chaotic perfected persons in the void, his heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly bowed loudly and said, Lu Ba greets perfected person Songlong. Then Lu Ba sent a voice transmission to Lin Feng, Senior, these four are all the four peak chaotic perfected persons of Empyrean City. The one in the lead is perfected person Songlong. He abhors evil and is willing to help others. He has helped many cultivators before. Perfected person Songlong, on the other hand, had no time to care about anything else. He only looked at the pile of poison dragon carcasses strewn everywhere. There were even the carcasses of 4 peak poison dragons. Seeing so many carcasses, the 4 of them all fell silent. Even though they were all peak chaotic perfected persons, when they saw this scene they were still shocked to the extreme. It was too stunning. This was the Poison Dragon Lake, the lair of the poison dragons. It had incurred the grievances of countless cultivators and chaotic perfected persons. There was even a peak chaotic perfected person who was devoured by the poison dragons here. But now, Lin Feng had actually completely flattened the poison dragon lake alone. Even seeing it with their own eyes, it was very stunning. No. There are still 4 poison dragons that are peak chaotic dire beasts missing. Perfected person Songlong's expression darkened. Empyrean City had long acquired information regarding the 8 peak chaotic dire beasts in the poison dragon lake. It was impossible for it to be wrong. Moreover, perfected person Songlong had indeed sensed the auras of the 8 peak chaotic dire beasts previously. There's no need to search for them. I've already sealed another 4, Lin Feng said indifferently, but he did not let his guard down at all. Sealed? Perfected person Songlong looked at Lin Feng in a daze. He also had a vague guess. Lin Feng probably had another spatial artifact, so they did not see the 4 sealed poison dragons. Why are the 4 perfected persons here at the poison dragon lake? Lin Feng asked again. If they had ill intentions, Lin Feng would not hold back. Hearing the faint wariness in Lin Feng's tone, perfected person Songlong seemed to have realized something. He shook his head and said, "Perfected person, don't misunderstand. These poison dragons were all killed by perfected person alone. We won't take advantage. We were just worried about perfected person's safety, so we specially came to reinforce you. Unexpectedly, we worried too much. Perfected person is extraordinarily strong. You didn't need our help at all." Perfected person Songlong had never thought of coming to take one's share of the loot. He did feel that it would be a pity if a peak chaotic perfected person like Lin Feng fell, so he came to help him. Perfected person Songlong was very sincere, and Lin Feng's expression softened. "Thank you, perfected persons." With that, Lin Feng made a grabbing motion and began to sweep all the corpses of the poison dragons in the poison dragon lake into his internal universe. This took about an hour. Lin Feng scanned with his mental power and was rather happy. He had really gained a lot this time. There were a total of 8 leak chaotic dire beasts, 36 advanced chaotic dire beasts, and 340 ordinary chaotic dire beasts. Even those peak chaotic perfected persons might not be able to obtain such a huge gain in hundreds of years. After all, just killing 8 peak chaotic dire beasts was almost impossible. Since the 4 peak chaotic perfected persons are already here, why don't you follow me to the territory of the 3-eyed giants? Lin Feng gave a slight smile. The 3-eyed giants and the poison dragons were Lin Feng's targets when leaving Empyrean City this time. Now, he had only eradicated the poison dragon lake. The territory of the 3-eyed giants had yet to be eradicated. However, perfected person Songlong frowned and said, "No, perfected person Lin. It's maybe fine to annihilate the poison dragon lake, but the territory of the 3-eyed giants isn't that easy. Perhaps with perfected person Lin's ability, you don't need to be afraid of the 3-eyed giants. But there's a slumbering giant king among the 3-eyed giants. That's a chaotic spirit beast." Giant king. Lin Feng frowned. There was no description of the giant king in the information Lu Ba had collected. Although there was the word giant in 3-eyed giant, they were not humans, let alone cultivators, but genuine chaotic dire beasts. According to the information Lin Feng had obtained, the overall strength of the 3-eyed giants was only slightly stronger than the poison dragon lake. There were 11 peak chaotic life forms. But now, perfected person Songlong actually said that there was a giant king among the 3-eyed giants. This surprised Lin Feng a little. That's right. Looks like perfected person Lin doesn't know. The three-eyed giant king has been slumbering for 1,000 years. Only relatively ancient cultivators know. Although the three-eyed giant king is slumbering and hasn't moved for 1,000 years, once the territory of the three-eyed giant encounters a crisis, the three-eyed giants can wake the giant king. Then, things will be troublesome. Lin Feng pondered for a moment, but in the end, he nodded and gave up on the idea of heading to the three-eyed giant's territory. He was indeed very strong at the moment, but he was not confident in dealing with a chaotic spirit beast at all. Perhaps he could stay alive, but what was the use? Now that he had eradicated the poison dragon lake alone, it was time to convert his gains into strength. He had come to the hallowed beast continent to cultivate and search for opportunities, not to fight for no reason. Hence, Lin Feng, perfected person Songlong, and the others left the poison dragon lake and returned to Empyrean City. Lu Ba was very happy now, and his face was glowing. When he left the city, he had endured all kinds of ridicule, but when he returned to the city, he was the envy of everyone. Following Lin Feng, Lu Ba obtained unimaginable benefits. As for the debt to the extreme spirit tower, Lu Ba no longer paid heed to it. Thank you for your trouble, perfected person Songlong. I'll definitely visit you in the future. Haha, perfected person Lin, we didn't help much. However, if there's time, I'd really like to have a nice chat with perfected person Lin. The two of them exchanged pleasantries before Lin Feng returned to Lu Ba's residence. Lin Feng had gained a lot now. As for selling the carcasses of the chaotic dire beasts, Lin Feng did not need to worry at all. There was a price for every chaotic dire beast carcass, and it was the same in the entire city. Lin Feng first sold the carcasses of 340 ordinary dire beasts, earning a total of 34,000 chaotic prime crystals. Then, Lin Feng sold another 16 advanced chaotic dire beasts and obtained 160,000 chaotic prime crystals. That was about 194,000 chaotic prime crystals in total. As for the remaining 20 advanced chaotic dire beasts and 8 peak chaotic dire beasts, Lin Feng did not sell them for the time being. Lin Feng also wanted to refine chaotic dire beasts at this level himself. After all, he was also a cultivator and needed to improve his strength. According to the agreement, Lu Ba could get 20% of the spoils, but Lu Ba himself knew very well that he had done almost nothing. How could he really dare to ask for 20%? Hence, he gritted his teeth, and only took the initiative to ask for 20,000 chaotic prime crystals. It was enough for him to repay the debt, and he could still save a portion of the chaotic prime crystals. Moreover, he raised a small condition, which was that he hoped to follow Lin Feng. Lin Feng thought for a moment. He did need a cultivator familiar with the situation on the hallowed beast continent to handle some trivial matters. Lu Ba could be considered familiar with it. Moreover, Lin Feng knew Lu Ba quite well. Hence, he agreed and asked Lu Ba to follow him. Lu Ba naturally thanked him profusely. He knew very well what it meant to be able to follow Lin Feng. This might be the greatest opportunity in his life, and he had to seize it. Perfected person Songlong is here. Just as Lin Feng was about to refine the poison dragons in his internal universe, Lu Ba reported to Lin Feng. Perfected person Songlong? Lin Feng had only returned to Empyrean City for about 10 days. During this period of time, his reputation had already soared, and he had become a peak entity in Empyrean City apart from those few top-notch perfected lords. However, perfected person Songlong was a peak chaotic perfected person after all. Lin Feng was a little curious about why he had come specially to visit Lin Feng. Invite perfected person Songlong to the living room. Lin Feng went straight to the living room. As expected, an elderly was sitting in the living room. He had an aura that was dignified without being imposing. It was perfected person Songlong. Ha! Perfected person Lin. I came uninvited. Lin Feng also smiled and said, since perfected person Songlong is here, you are naturally welcome. Perfected person, please take a seat. After the two of them sat down, perfected person Songlong did not leave someone hanging and said directly, perfected person Lin, I heard that you were traveling in the chaos. I wonder if it's true. Naturally. I was traveling in the chaos and encountered Lu Ba by chance. That's how I learned about the hallowed beast continent. I see. I also look forward to the chaos. Unfortunately, it's not my destiny to venture deep into it, so I can only roam nearby. Perfected person Songlong shook his head, appearing quite regretful. By the way, why is perfected person Songlong here this time? Lin Feng knew that a peak chaotic perfected person like perfected person Songlong did not really come to chat with him. There must be a reason. As expected, perfected person Songlong pondered for a long time and said, "There's indeed something. I wonder if perfected person Lin has noticed it." Perfected person swept through the poison dragon lake alone. There aren't many poison dragons left, but the poison dragon lake has become the territory of the three-eyed giants. Three-eyed giants? I didn't pay much attention to it. Indeed, Lin Feng had not paid much attention to it. However, this was within expectations. The poison dragons were gone. What was the point of occupying the poison dragon lake? Those chaotic dire beasts would also fight among themselves. Our Empyrean city has always relied on the perfected lord's array to barely maintain itself. However, we are actually surrounded by chaotic dire beasts all around. Among them, there are 4 chaotic dire beast races, all presided over by chaotic spirit beasts. They are indeed a huge threat. In the past, we had also thought of annihilating the 4 chaotic dire beast races. Unfortunately, we failed every time. But this time, if perfected person Lin is willing to help, things will definitely be different. Lin Feng frowned. It was abnormal for perfected person Songlong to be the lobbyist for such a major matter when Empyrean City was making a major move. Perfected person Songlong. This is such a major matter. I understand. Such a huge matter should naturally be initiated by the 4 perfected lords. It's only the intent at the moment. There are 4 perfected lords in our Empyrean City, who all want to expand Empyrean City. Hence, when the opportunity is right, the 4 perfected lords will naturally invite the many chaotic perfected persons in the city to discuss it. Lin Feng nodded and said, "I understand. If there's a need, I'll certainly be glad to come." Haha, that would be great. Perfected person Songlong was very excited. Lin Feng was a peak chaotic perfected person. In a sense, Lin Feng could almost be considered half a perfected lord. After all, no chaotic perfected person in the entire Empyrean City could destroy the entire poison dragon lake alone. Although Lin Feng was a passerby on the hallowed beast continent, he was only killing chaotic dire beasts. To Lin Feng, killing chaotic dire beasts was also the best opportunity to improve his strength. If the 4 perfected lords were willing to attack and restrain the 4 chaotic spirit beasts, Lin Feng would have nothing to worry about. He could harvest the chaotic dire beasts without restraint. By the way, perfected person Songlong, have you heard of the holy cities of chaos? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He asked perfected person Songlong about the holy cities of chaos. Previously, he had asked Lu Ba, but Lu Ba did not know much. As a peak chaotic perfected person Songlong should know more than Lu Ba. The holy cities of chaos? This is a holy land in the chaos that everyone longs for. How can I not have heard of it? Lin Feng was overjoyed and hurriedly asked, "Then, perfected person, do you know where the holy cities of chaos is?" Hearing this, perfected person Songlong could only smile weakly and say, "The holy cities of chaos." Back then, many true people who were traveling in the chaos also descended on the hallowed beast continent. They were also searching for the holy cities of chaos. After all, that is the holy land to countless cultivators. Unfortunately, I'm afraid no one on the hallowed beast continent knows where the holy cities of chaos are. No one on the hallowed beast continent knows either. This means that even the perfected lords do not know. Lin Feng frowned, a trace of disappointment appearing on his face. He had been searching for the holy cities of chaos for a long time. Unfortunately, there was not a single clue. Perfected person Songlong glanced at Lin Feng, but fell silent. After a long while, perfected person Songlong said in a low voice, "Actually, there's some information that might be of help to you, perfected person." "What information?" Although the cultivators of our hallowed beast continent do not know where the holy cities of chaos are, there were once some mysterious people who claimed to be chaotic merchants. They traveled in the chaos and were led by powerful perfected lords. Their caravans sell all kinds of treasures. Similarly, cultivators in the chaotic continents can only barter with other items. In fact, as long as you give the chaotic merchants something that satisfies them, they can even bring cultivators to the holy cities of chaos. What? Chaotic merchants can bring cultivators to the holy cities of chaos. Hearing this, Lin Feng could not help but feel excited. That's right. This matter is absolutely true. In our hallowed beast continent, 3 perfected lords once boarded the chaotic spaceship of the chaotic merchants and headed for the holy cities of chaos. Unfortunately, chaotic merchants are very difficult to encounter. Sometimes, chaotic merchants will come in tens of thousands of years, and sometimes not a single chaotic merchant will come in 1,000,000 years. Moreover, the conditions of the chaotic merchants to head to the holy cities of chaos are very demanding. Even perfected lords might not be able to satisfy the requirements of the chaotic merchants. If not, it would not be such that only 3 perfected lords in the hallowed beast continent could go to the holy cities of chaos. Perfected person Songlong shook his head, looking rather helpless. He had also fantasized that if a chaotic merchant came, he might be able to board the chaotic spaceship and head to the holy cities of chaos. However, this was ultimately just a fantasy. Up until now, only 3 perfected lords in the hallowed beast continent could board the spaceship of chaotic vendors. What chance did a mere peak chaotic perfected person like him have? Moreover, there was no knowing when the chaotic merchants would come. Still, this information was enough for Lin Feng. Ever since he entered the chaos, Lin Feng had often heard of the holy cities of chaos. He knew that it was the holy land of cultivators in the chaos, a place that countless perfected persons and perfected lords yearned for. However, Lin Feng never obtained any clues. Only now did Lin Feng truly obtain a clue to the holy cities of chaos from perfected person Songlong. With this clue there was hope. Next, Lin Feng asked perfected person Songlong very seriously about the details of the chaotic merchants. Perfected person Songlong told Lin Feng almost everything he knew. This was not a secret to begin with. It was just generally circulated in the higher-up circles. Even if perfected person Songlong did not say anything, Lin Feng could still ask other peak chaotic perfected persons. He believed that with Lin Feng's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to find out about this. However, Lin Feng was still very grateful to perfected person Songlong. After sending perfected person Songlong off, Lin Feng returned to the quiet room. He was thinking about perfected person Songlong's words just now. Lin Feng did not pay much attention to the major operation of the 4 perfected lords of Empyrean City. With his current strength, he had nothing to fear apart from chaotic spirit beasts or perfected lords. On the other hand, the news of chaotic merchants made him very excited. It seemed like he had to stay in the hallowed beast continent for a while longer. At the very least, he had to wait for the chaotic merchants, or collect more information and clues about them. He wanted to see what those chaotic merchants needed. Once the chaotic merchants arrived, Lin Feng would be able to follow them to the holy cities of chaos. However, with a great battle imminent, Lin Feng also had to improve his strength a little, especially since he had gained a lot this time. Swoosh! Lin Feng immersed his consciousness in his internal universe. If he sold any one of the 20 advanced chaotic dire beasts and 8 peak chaotic dire beasts, he would be able to obtain 1,000,000 chaotic prime crystals, let alone a total of 8. However, Lin Feng would not sell the peak chaotic dire beasts. After all, he also needed peak chaotic dire beasts for cultivation. Now, no matter how many ordinary chaotic dire beasts Lin Feng refined, it seemed impossible to condense a second chaotic whole. Hence, Lin Feng was ready to try out peak chaotic dire beasts. Refine! Without any hesitation, Lin Feng immediately began to refine a peak chaotic dire beast. This peak poison dragon was indeed worthy of being a peak chaotic lifeform. Even in Lin Feng's internal universe, it was still struggling violently. At this moment, it was suppressed by Lin Feng's cosmic power and being refined. Could only give out low cries. However, Lin Feng circulated the primeval true scripture and also began to refine this peak chaotic dire beast. A large amount of pure energy surged into Lin Feng's body. In particular, the chaotic hole was devouring a large amount of energy like a bottomless pit. Gradually, the gaze of the poison dragon lost its luster, and its entire body stopped struggling. A large amount of energy was absorbed by the chaotic hole and surged into the chaos. It took Lin Feng a few days to completely refine this peak chaotic dire beast. How wonderful! A peak chaotic dire beast actually contains such a terrifying amount of energy. Lin Feng was incomparably surprised because after he refined a peak chaotic dire beast, he actually felt a sense of fullness. In other words, a peak chaotic dire beast would allow Lin Feng's chaotic hole to become consummate. It had to be known that Lin Feng's chaotic hole was a chaotic hole condensed at the third level of the primeval true scripture. One chaotic hole was countless times stronger than the 7 chaotic holes at the second level of the primeval true scripture. Of course, a peak chaotic dire beast was naturally no small matter. However, Lin Feng did not believe that it could allow condensing a chaotic hole to the consummate state. Perhaps it was because in the past, Lin Feng had already plundered all kinds of natural treasures and some divine medicines from the Incendium Divine Palace. In addition, he had also refined many chaotic dire beasts in the past. With all the accumulations of the past, Lin Feng refined a peak chaotic dire beast today, which was how he could cultivate his first chaotic hole to the consummate state. Once he reached consummation, it also meant that Lin Feng could cultivate a second chaotic hole at any time. At this thought, Lin Feng did not stand on ceremony and continued to refine the poison dragons. However, this time he was not refining peak chaotic dire beasts, but advanced chaotic dire beasts. After all, peak chaotic dire beasts were rare, and there were many more advanced chaotic dire beasts. There were at least 20 carcasses of advanced chaotic dire beasts in Lin Feng's internal universe. 1, 2, 3. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had already refined 3 advanced chaotic dire beasts. After all, his chaotic hole had already reached the consummate state. Now, he only needed more energy to condense a second chaotic hole. Boom! Lin Feng's entire body shook. A vortex suddenly appeared beside the first chaotic hole in his body. This vortex seemed to have stirred up a storm. There was also a powerful suction force that sucked in all the energy of the advanced chaotic dire beasts that Lin Feng had refined. Success! I finally succeeded. The second chaotic hole! Lin Feng was overjoyed. He had finally successfully cultivated the second chaotic hole. Ever since Lin Feng cultivated the primeval true scripture, the third level of the primeval true scripture was the most difficult to cultivate. In the previous first and second levels, Lin Feng could still absorb a large amount of energy and quickly condense a chaotic hole. However, at the third level, it was extremely difficult to condense a chaotic hole. Lin Feng even had to travel from the Incendium continent to the Hallowed Beast continent before he could finally condense a second chaotic hole. The second chaotic hole had just taken shape and was far from consummation. Lin Feng no longer refined those advanced chaotic dire beasts, but the remaining 7 peak chaotic dire beasts. The energy contained in the bodies of peak chaotic dire beasts was like an infinite ocean. However, Lin Feng's chaotic hole was a bottomless pit to begin with. Even an ocean would probably be easily sucked dry. The number of peak chaotic dire beasts he refined also increased further and further. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lin Feng refined more and more. After refining a total of 6 peak chaotic dire beasts, Lin Feng's second chaotic hole could be considered consummate. However, it was just barely consummate. Hence, Lin Feng continued to refine the remaining advanced chaotic dire beasts. Lin Feng refined another 7 advanced chaotic dire beasts before finally cultivating another chaotic hole. Currently, Lin Feng already had a total of 3 chaotic holes in his body. It could be said that his strength had improved greatly. However, this also made Lin Feng frown. During his cultivation just now, he had already tested the energy he needed to condense a chaotic hole. He would need at least 6 peak chaotic dire beasts or even 7. Moreover, as he condensed more and more chaotic holes, the amount of energy required would be even greater. If he wanted to condense 7 chaotic holes, he would probably need dozens of peak chaotic dire beasts, or even more. This was not an easy matter. On the Hallowed Beast continent, Only perfected lords could kill dozens of peak chaotic dire beasts. Moreover, it was not that easy even for perfected lords. The reason was very simple. Once a perfected lord took action, how could those chaotic spirit beasts allow the perfected lord to slaughter chaotic dire beasts? As for chaotic perfected persons, they were already suppressed. Killing peak chaotic dire beasts was very difficult in the first place, let alone killing dozens of them. Even Lin Feng found it difficult. If he went on a killing spree and provoked the chaotic spirit beasts, things would get troublesome. Right now, Lin Feng was not confident in dealing with a chaotic spirit beast comparable to a perfected lord. Hence, Lin Feng was looking forward to the major operation mentioned by perfected person Songlong. However, perfected person Songlong had disappeared during this period of time and seemed to be very busy. He wondered how the major operation was going. Perfected person Songlong is here to visit? Please come in. Lin Feng finally saw perfected person Songlong. However, when he saw perfected person Songlong, Lin Feng could not quite believe his eyes. The expression of perfected person Songlong in front of him was downcast, and there was not even a trace of life in his eyes. Perfected person Songlong, what happened? Lin Feng realized that things might not be looking good. Perfected person Songlong heaved a long sigh and said with a weak smile, "I've kept perfected person Lin waiting for a long time. There's a regretful matter that I should inform perfected person about. The major operation has been cancelled." The major operation has been cancelled? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. Even though he had already expected that it might not be a good thing, he was still a little caught off guard that the major operation had actually been cancelled. After all, the major operation involved 4 perfected lords. How could a plan formulated by the 4 perfected lords be cancelled just like that? Something major must have happened. Hence, Lin Feng hurriedly asked, "What exactly happened? Why was it cancelled for no reason?" Perfected person Songlong could only smile weakly and say truthfully, "Perfected person, you should know that there are actually 4 perfected lords in our Empyrean city. They are Perfected Lord Empyrean, Perfected Lord Extreme Spirit, Perfected Lord Sword Wielder, and Perfected Lord Prime Shadow." That's right. Everyone knows that the 4 perfected lords are the mainstays of the Empyrean city. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, the 4 perfected lords were well known. Even though he had not been in Empyrean city for long, he had long learned about the 4 perfected lords. Among these 4 perfected lords, Perfected Lord Empyrean was the oldest, and was the one who founded Empyrean city single-handedly. He was also the strongest and could be considered the leader of the 4 perfected lords. Next was Perfected Lord Sword Wielder. Although he had ascended to power the fastest and was the last perfected lord, his strength was very terrifying, only next to Perfected Lord Empyrean. Perfected Lord Extreme Spirit was most ancient. It was said that he was a good friend of Perfected Lord Empyrean. Back then, he had established Empyrean city with Perfected Lord Empyrean, and could be considered a founder of Empyrean city. Only Perfected Lord Prime Shadow had an ambiguous background. It seemed that he's a perfected lord who had come to the Empyrean city from elsewhere. Lin Feng had only been in Empyrean city for a short period of time, after all, and did not know the exact details. That's right. The 4 perfected lords are the mainstays of our Empyrean city. This major operation was also agreed upon by the 4 perfected lords. Unfortunately, Perfected Lord Prime Shadow was not a perfected lord of Empyrean city to begin with. He had just lived in Empyrean city all these years. Perfected Lord Prime Shadow received a message, so he bade farewell to Perfected Lord Empyrean and left Empyrean city. Hence, the major operation was naturally cancelled. Perfected person Songlong also appeared rather helpless. Originally, they were ready to initiate a major battle. There was even a chance of expelling the 4 chaotic dire beast races, allowing Empyrean city to become stronger, and even eliminate the threat of the chaotic dire beasts. There was every benefit and no downside to Empyrean city. Unfortunately, at the last moment, the plan was finally cancelled. After all, after losing a perfected lord, it was rather difficult for the 3 perfected lords to resist 4 chaotic spirit beasts. After all, every one of these 4 chaotic spirit beasts was not simple. 3 perfected lords can resist 3 chaotic spirit beasts. Isn't there some kinds of arrays that can allow chaotic perfected persons to form an array to resist the 4th chaotic spirit beast? Lin Feng could not help but ask. Difficult, it's just too difficult. Perfected person Lin might not have encountered a chaotic spirit beast before, so you don't know how powerful it is. At the perfected person level, cultivators can practically crush chaotic dire beasts in a one-on-one battle without the suppression of the hallowed beast continent. However, once they encounter a chaotic spirit beast, cultivators won't be able to gain any advantages. Lin Feng was indeed a little disappointed. However, this matter was not up to perfected person Songlong to make the call. Hence, after perfected person Songlong apologized again and again, Lin Feng chatted with perfected person Songlong for a while longer. Then, perfected person Songlong bade farewell and left. Perfected person Songlong had been busy with this matter for a long time. Unfortunately, the plan was finally cancelled at the last moment. Perfected person Songlong was also very upset. Looking at perfected person Songlong's departing back, Lin Feng pondered for a moment. Empyrean City had lost a perfected lord, and its strength had declined drastically. It was probably impossible for it to take the initiative to attack anytime soon. If Lin Feng wanted to continue improving, especially if he wanted to condense a chaotic whole, he would have to go out and kill the chaotic dire beasts alone. However, that would very likely provoke the chaotic spirit beasts. Lin Feng was not confident that he could contend with chaotic spirit beasts at all. Hence, Lin Feng immediately immersed his consciousness in the universe within his body. The internal universe has expanded by another 30 million light-years. Lin Feng was also rather satisfied. If the diameter increased by 30 million light-years, it would be 230 million light-years. This was also because Lin Feng had obtained a large amount of the universe origin after refining so many chaotic dire beasts. Hence, he could support the expansion of the universe. Can the chaotic lotus produce more lotus seeds and allow the 3,000 universe demons to metamorphose into chaotic lifeforms? Lin Feng thought of the 3,000 universe demons. If they all metamorphosed into chaotic lifeforms and formed the inescapable net array, could it resist chaotic spirit beasts? Lin Feng himself did not know either. Actually, he had also thought of imparting the inescapable net. However, even if it was imparted, apart from perfected lords, who could organize a formation of 3,000 chaotic perfected persons? Could the perfected lords make up their mind to sweep through the 4 chaotic dire beast races? All kinds of unpredictable factors still made Lin Feng trust his internal universe more, and the 3,000 universe demons more. At the very least, he could easily mobilize the 3,000 universe demons. The chaotic lotus did not respond. Instead, it quickly produced lotus seeds. Lin Feng counted carefully. There were a total of 284 lotus seeds this time. If he successfully allowed 284 chaotic lifeforms to metamorphose, including the previous 81 chaotic lifeforms, he would be able to gather 365 in total. However, even if 365 chaotic lifeforms formed the inescapable net array, how could they contend with chaotic spirit beasts? Lin Feng could only give the 284 lotus seeds to the universe demons. As expected, they all underwent metamorphosis. Among the 3,000 universe demons, there were a total of 365 chaotic lifeforms that could form the inescapable net array. Even Lin Feng found it shocking, enough to easily trap peak chaotic lifeforms. However, that was all. He was still far from powerful enough to affect chaotic spirit beasts or contend against chaotic perfected lords. Not enough. I'm not strong enough. Lin Feng shook his head. His strength was far from enough, unless he could condense more than 5 chaotic wholes, or metamorphose all 3,000 universe demons into chaotic lifeforms. Apart from that, there was no other way. Perhaps there's another way I can try. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He analyzed his current strength carefully. There was really a possibility that could allow his strength to increase substantially, and that was martial arts, chaotic martial arts. Currently, Lin Feng had already created the 4th form of the Heaven and Earth Seal. Its power was extremely close to perfected spirit martial arts, but this was still not enough. It was far from enough. Lin Feng had to create the fifth form. Or, the fifth form would be a perfected spirit martial art. That way, he would be confident in contending with the chaotic spirit beast. However, how deep must one's martial arts foundation be to create the fifth form? Lin Feng had collected the martial arts of the entire Incendium continent, and that had only allowed him to create the fourth form. Even the foundation of the chaotic martial arts of the entire Incendium continent was far from enough for Lin Feng to create the fifth form of the Heaven and Earth Seal. However, this was the hallowed beast continent. Chaotic perfected persons were everywhere, and there were quite a few perfected lords. Forget about the fifth form of the Heaven and Earth Seal, there were even perfected spirit martial arts. Of course, everything required a large amount of chaotic prime crystals. With chaotic prime crystals, everything would be in place.